So, thank you. It is March 9th, 2022, 7:34 p.m., and I call this meeting to order. We need a motion to accept minutes from the February 15th meeting.
So moved.
Anybody to second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Can I have the votes to accept the minutes for February 15th? Was not here, so I abstain. The minutes have been accepted for February 15th, 2022. So the first item on our agenda for today is reports from interviews with Jane Dunphy and Ross Eldridge and related correspondence. Has everyone had a chance to familiarize themselves with those? Do we want to discuss? What are the thoughts and feelings about the interviews? I think those came out to us as an email, is that right?
They did. So Wendy Mickle had interviewed Jane Dunphy. She has it's probably about what, 1, 2, 3, probably about 5 paragraphs or so. And to do a quick summary, and then I'll give these minutes to Ian for the record. So Wendy had asked. She said Wendy felt that this letter presents Jane Dunphy's opinion well, that there was no need to edit it. I'm only repeating it because I'm sure someone's watching. Who's going to watch this is going to wonder what the letter says. This is Jane Dunphy, 1 Lyman Street, Westborough. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it was an interview done over the phone on February 16, 2022 at 4 p.m. Ms. Dunphy is 92 years old, a former teacher, and it's an opinion about the cotton gin, an opinion about Eli Whitney being able to bring industrialization to America. The quote was, "The cotton gin saved the country back then financially, and Eli Whitney brought industrialization." Mrs. Dunphy, actually, let me correct myself, I said Ms. Dunphy. Ms. Dunphy noted, talked about other businesses in Westborough. There was a Boston to Albany trolley coming through Westborough. She noted that the trolley brought many businesses and new families to Westborough. Quote, "We became a wealthy town with all the factories and new businesses on East Main Street in the downtown area." She noted the Kenworthy building still standing was a shoe factory. There was a hat factory, a sleigh factory, a Mason's tape factory, which led to Mason's jewelry store at the Rotary. Mrs. Dunphy noted that the first high-pressure water piping system bringing water to residents on Church Street, Ruggles Street, and through the center of town also existed. She described the activity in the center of the town with the trolleys coming through each day and the number of people who came to work on the trolleys eventually brought homes here. Quote, "The fact that the inventions of Eli Whitney, born in Westborough, were known was a source of pride by those who lived in the town." She noted that a cotton plant on the seal might be nice. She told a story of traveling to the Smithsonian Museum to see the original cotton gin. She added that her crossword puzzles always used Eli Whitney as a clue, as well as on game shows on TV. She stated again that Eli Whitney is very important to American history and industrialization. She mentioned that while she and her husband were on a cruise in the South, I don't think this is relevant. Okay, at the end, Mrs. Dunphy said that she hopes our committee might come to the Willows to let folks there share their stories. She's appreciative of the time of the committee to look at this. And that's an overview of the letter. The actual recording of the letter I'll give to Ian for the record. Okay?
So for the purposes of our continuing categorization of all of these individual responses into the coding system that we've adopted, as in either for the change or against the change, it seems to me that even as she's proposing sort of alternative elements to put on the seal, it sounds to me like generally she's leaning toward preserving the same images that are there on the seal. I haven't entered that into the same database, but I will. And so that would be one more entry in support of preserving the seal as it is currently. Since you had that so handy, Nick, do you also happen to have Ross Eldridge's letter or position?
I don't.
Ian.
Yeah, so I was in touch with Ross by email right after our last meeting, and he gave him my phone number, said welcome to give me a call anytime. He promised that he would. I didn't hear back from him, and then last week I followed up through email again and still haven't heard back from him. So that's all I can report out.
Okay, so there's no actual substantive position to, okay. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Jordan.
How are you? You haven't missed much. We just, much. You haven't missed much. We just summarized the interview with Jane Dunphy, which we are going to code as leaning toward preserving the seal as it is currently, and Ian's update on Ross Eldridge's interview is that there hasn't been an interview, there has just been an exchange to set up an interview. Okay, well, so other than entering that exact position into the database as it is currently and coding it as in favor of preserving the seal as it currently stands, I don't see that there's anything else that we can do with this correspondence unless you'll.
The only other one I was going to mention,
Yep.
if I may, is just we did receive on the 23rd of February, we received an email from Mike Matthew, who's a realtor in town, and his, at 10 West Main Street, his home address is in here somewhere. But
I saw that one, yep.
yeah, he answered the questions that would be on the survey. And does the imagery on the town, he had a preface to this, to the images on the town, on the survey, on the seal. Oh, I just closed my phone. Here we go. Does the imagery on the current town seal reflect the values and ideals of our community? Yes, I believe it does. When you think of Westborough, what symbols come to mind as a representative of our community? The rest of this question should say, what symbols of our past come to mind? And I would most certainly say the cotton gin is one of them. Based on this committee's charge, the recommendation is to change the seal. What are some of the ideas for the process of designing it? The simple answer is to leave it as it is. Our seal does not need to be changed. I recommend that we leave it as be. He had a preface in this letter to us also, where he explained a little bit about his family heritage in the town, and it started in 1954, and again, we can enter this into the record.
Yes.
Okay, so, but I think that's basically the gist of the letter. If Mr. Matthews watching this, I'm not trying to dismiss what he's writing, for the sake of time, I'm just trying to, similar to what I did with Mrs. Dunphy's letter.
In fact, if we're tallying up additional comments, there have been a couple of others that have been sent in as well that are still to be entered. There was one actually sent as recently as 6:12 p.m. today. I don't know if you saw that one from Gary Sangenario, who also wrote out in an email his thoughts about the town seal, and it sounds like he is leaning as well towards preserving the town seal as it currently stands. He refers to it as a timeless symbol of our town's heritage and one that he feels should be kept in place. So that one I will also enter. That will be on my to-do list. So moving then from that to the bulk of today's meeting, sort of the centerpiece of today's meeting is going to be planning for the 5-minute presentation that we will need to conduct at the town meeting in how many days? Who remembers off the top of their head? When is
10.
The 10 days.
Yes, it's
On
two
the
Saturdays
19th.
from now.
That's right. On the 19th. Do we know yet what time we're going, or?
Yeah, it will be early because the meeting is convened at 9 o'clock, and the report you'll can give if you want to give will be part of Article 2.
Article
So
2.
I would guess probably between 9:20 and 9:30,
Sounds good.
or somewhere around there. It will be done as part of the after the town votes to hear the reports of the various committees. I will give you, and I'm seeing if there's any other committees that want to do a quick oral report. So it will be shortly after 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. So since we have that report that we recently sent in on paper, we could add to that what has happened since then. Is there anything? So there was an additional informational session that took place, right? One more discussion session, and we also have had the survey sent out since then. So we can add the results of the additional session as well as whatever analysis of survey results we have up until then. Being it that I missed last meeting, was that discussed already to any degree, sort of what was going to be in the presentation to the town meeting?
We did not talk about that presentation.
Okay.
We talked at length about different ways we've reached out to the community. So I would suggest that one of the slides we present to the town meeting is a list of the ways we have reached out to the community. So for example, let's say we put the town, that we conducted a survey. As of 5 o'clock this afternoon, we've had 339 responses on that survey. So I thought, so for example, let's say there was a bullet line that said town survey, and then in parentheses, here's the current number of responses we've had, just to give some context to the people at the town, to the residents at the town meeting about what we've done.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
you're fine.
should we even do slides, or is it going to be more of an oral report where we read off?
I don't think slides are necessary, because then it necessitates
Right.
us deciding what's on the slide. Let's just
Right.
make a rundown of what we've done, and
Yep.
this is gonna take a long time anyways. And this meeting is gonna be a big one, and so they're gonna appreciate if we could just.
If you want to delegate to whoever's going to give the presentation,
Yes.
if they want to, rather than if you have to wordsmith slides, it's okay to have slides, but again, it's 5 to 10 minutes tops. And
Yes.
so if the committee wants to agree on the general content and then delegate to whoever's going to make the presentation to decide whether they want to summarize bullets, just because people will be sitting there and sometimes people like to see, you know, just either, sort of like what you did for the information sessions of just 1 or 2 slides of, here's the points we're making, you make them orally and then you're done,
Okay.
you know, so.
Well, so we have that report that we recently sent out to the town. What was that, in January that we sent it out? That it could be a good starting point, to which we only need to add one more information session as well as the survey. So I'm comfortable presenting it on the 19th, unless you want to do this. Put it up
What I
somewhere.
was thinking, maybe the two of us just be
Yeah,
present.
sure,
I thought
let's
that
do
that might make sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since we're the co-chairs.
Yeah, absolutely, we should do that. So should we then, I guess, settle what we will add, what information will we add about the final information session? I'm going to pull up the report that we sent out and maybe just summarize it for you here, so we remember, so it's more proximate in our memory. While I'm doing that, any particular information from the information session, from the information gathering session, or from the survey that we should be including? This also kind of goes into the next agenda item, which is analysis of responses. So maybe we could discuss that for a bit, since that's going to be a part of the presentation, right?
Well, my suggestion is to actually hold off on that. I think
Okay.
for a couple reasons. It's premature, because what we're hoping with this grand stage we have is to get a lot more feedback. I personally also think that we should follow through and see if the high school would be willing to do what they pretty much said they would do, which was invite the students under the guidance of the teachers to actually fill out the survey. So any analysis that we would offer now would be kind of like taking the brownies out of the oven after 3 minutes. It's premature.
That's right.
Plus, we're gonna have to revisit that anyways. It also will, I believe, whatever analysis we would come up with would contaminate the potential future references in one way or the other. It's just problematic, but I don't see a gain from it. The point of the presentation, I believe, at the town meeting is to just do an update on the work of the committee. Now, we can mention we're in the process of receiving, and we hope for a lot more feedback, and we will be analyzing those comments as they come in, and leave it at that.
So what if we, on the slide, on the introduction slide, we have our names.
Yep.
And then what if we condense that and put the names, the 3 questions we've been asking, and then a list of, here's how we're trying to reach out to the community.
Honestly, I don't even want to bother with slides. It just
Yeah.
feels like such an additional task that's going to be a very minimal gain in terms of relaying information, right? So this is going to be, we will read this off for 5 minutes, as well as enter this into public record. I'm sure we'll just submit the same speech. Preparing the slides means we will also need to set up the slides, display the slides on the screen, worry about switching the slides while we're reading the
How
report.
about just one slide
Okay.
that people could write in their notes that they're taking as to
Yep.
how to read, like our email address?
And you don't have to do anything to set up. If, I can give you the name, there's an
Yeah.
IT person from the town.
Oh, okay,
That we all mail presentations to them. They have them all staged, ready to go.
okay,
And they're sitting
So
down
one-
front, and
Just
if
the one
there's
that-
one or two slides, you can just, I mean, you can come, whoever does the presentation, come down front, and then if you just say next slide, please. And I
Okay.
can help you coordinate all that.
okay, that would be
But yeah,
good.
just keep it to one, which
Yep.
just, this is how you could have your voice
How to
heard.
reach, okay,
And then the you verbally overlay that information, like 339 responses so far.
Yep.
And 3 info censures, maybe a list of the change makers we've reached out to, like the Civic Club.
Stakeholders.
Stakeholders, yeah.
what we have currently in the report that we submitted in January is this. So we began by summarizing the purpose and the history of the Town Seal Review Committee. And that was just language that was taken from the initial mission. The 3 bullet points that summarized our task, that we just keep repeating the same in all of the information gathering sessions. So we can say that again. Then we said that the Town Seal Review Committee met 8 times from August 2021 to December 2021. So since then, this is now session number 12?
Yeah, that's what the.
Meeting number 12,
That's what the-
yeah. So we can say that we have met 12 times from August 2021 to March 2022, including 3 information gathering sessions. We can also make a note about adding Jordan to the committee recently. So added Jordan Hyde to the committee.
And you know what, and that's and if we just have the list, like the list, I just put a list together here. We've had solicited stakeholders, survey, information gathering, the electronic sign in the town, website, we've done posters. And I know, we talked about this at the last meeting, and we also sought information from the town historian. So that's 7 different ways.
Yep.
There was an 8th way, I have to go back and look at the minutes.
Technically, it's the local history library.
Local
Yeah.
history library, thank you.
So, yeah, so we say all of that in the report, so we can mention that again. We can mention what the information gathering effort involved, and so the only thing that we would need to add here is the survey. So we would say that yep,
Do you want to put the web address for the survey? Because at the 3rd information gathering session, we converted it to a tiny URL, like it was an easy thing to remember.
yes,
And then add in, and that's something I was going to make a suggestion at one point tonight, that, or maybe I guess it'd be the time to do it, that we need to put a sunset on when we're going to stop collecting data.
yeah,
So we could say, look, we're gonna give, if it's the 19th, I would suggest we say
April 1st.
April 1st, yeah, and then be done. So then, because we have, in my opinion, we have to start making some decisions.
no, for sure,
you know,
for sure. Okay,
So
So-
what if we do all that, and then it gives people one more chance if they want to apply. And you know what, Alan, I said earlier, like here's how many people we've had reply to this survey so far. If we want to say it, fine, but to speak to Eric's point earlier, maybe we just list this information, this is what we've done, this is what we've
conduct
done.
this, okay,
Boom, and be done, and either possibly get that information all on one slide
that's fine,
and be done.
That's
You know?
fine.
And I think if you just give, you look at that warrant, that's a very lengthy document, it's like 35 pages. I'd say, be sincere, be brief, and be seated, like,
Okay.
you know.
What we have currently will probably take, I would say, no more than 3 to 5 minutes, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking for. We are listing all of these things that you just named, what we have done. I'm going to add language about the survey. We're not going to say how many people responded, and as the closing statement, as the closing paragraph, we will say that we will stop collecting comments on April 1st. Do we want to make it April 2nd, just
Yeah.
we will stop collecting
Yeah,
Or we could say March 31st.
Let's
at
do March
31st.
31st.
Okay, March 31st.
responses on March 31st.
We could say 11:59 PM.
Sure, that sounds good. So that we don't hear from angry folks. Okay, 11:59 p.m. And I think that's a good report, right? Respectfully submitted, all of our names,
Boom, done.
boom, done. Okay, so I will circulate a draft of this report that Nick and I will co-present on March 19th. There's just a few changes from the previous report plus the additional 2 paragraphs. Who wants to take the slide? Who wants to do the slide?
There, I'll do it.
Excellent, all right. So that's easy. Then it means that we have planned the 5-minute presentation. Look at us go. The next thing on the agenda is an update on analysis of responses received by the Town Seal Review Committee.
May I ask one question before we go there?
Yes,
Because
for
it ties on what we just did. The fall town meeting is when?
It's typically held
Roughly.
on like the 3rd Monday of October.
So if we're stopping receiving these by the end of March, I think we could make that our last, like, that could be our point where
Yes,
whatever we need to do, we're done with.
yes,
So I think that's plenty of months.
yes.
I know what you're just about to describe will be like the next big task.
Yes,
But beyond that, I think if we give ourselves 8 months, we'll take 8 months. If we give ourselves, what is it, 5 months? We'll take 5.
Absolutely.
So we don't have to decide that now. I just wanted to plant that seed in all of our our heads about.
John, I have a question.
Right.
For the article, so there are 35 articles, like if I.
37,
37.
yeah, 38.
Is that, how does that compare to previous town
Well,
meetings?
the past 2 years have been light intentionally because of COVID. And we knew, and the select board and everybody in town pulled together to do the minimal amount. So it's certainly much more than the past 2 years. But it's probably about typical.
Okay.
There's usually quite a few.
So where I'm going with this is it likely there might be another town meeting in this spring of 2022?
Not because of this. This town meeting will go until that
Until
warrant
it's
is completed.
okay.
It might go till Monday night, it might go till Tuesday
Okay.
night, it might be done Saturday. We don't know.
Okay, so.
But following the thread where I think you're going, certainly there is bound to be a fall town meeting because the charter calls for us having a town meeting, and there's always something. However, sometimes things come up that the select board has things that they need to get acted upon, and so they have a special town meeting. The select board can call a special town meeting with like 30 days notice. So this committee could figure out to say, if you're done early, you could find out, is the select board planning to have a special town meeting for any other purpose, in which case they could add articles to it. Or it could be, if this committee's done, you could approach the select board and say, you're done, do they prefer to do this in a special purpose? This is the whole town meeting, and call a special town meeting just to report on your work, or do they want to wait till October? And and I can help facilitate that discussion. So it's not that there can't be. I know of no pressing topic that is likely to cause an extra special town meeting between now and October, but stranger things have happened. We've had them in January because something had to get done before March, and they haven't been able to wait till March.
Okay. So I was just thinking
Yeah.
that might be.
But as you make progress, just let me know, and I'll keep my ears open for if there's anything. Yeah.
okay, sounds good. Okay, so again, this is another thing that I missed in the last meeting. So far we've decided, I saw in the minutes that we've decided to sort of split up the responses into chunks and analyze them. And so my sense is that we're going to read them and then record code to the same coding system that we've had so far. My only suggestion to that is to ensure some kind of intercoder reliability, to then have the additional step of swapping with somebody else who could look over the same responses that you have looked over to see if your coding aligns with another person's coding. And of course, ideally, that would be multiple people, but we're not really, orchestrating a full-blown scientific study here, so I think exactly one additional pair of eyes should be enough. But we should start doing that after all of the responses come in, right? How many do we have so far?
330, and 342 with the 3 that we just added in tonight.
Nice. 342.
So one of the things we looked at the last meeting was for, in that one of the tasks was for each of us to cull through the responses that we had, the spreadsheet you had made, the results from the survey. And we had at John Arnold's suggestion, we had thought of each of us coming in and saying, here are some of the codes, here are the codes, so each of us did it individually.
Oh, we started reading that already.
And then let's see what we had.
I see.
Is because we might see some common themes.
Uh-huh.
And so that was partly what we were talking about doing, but we had agreed not to, we weren't coming in tonight to do that. Am I incorrect about that?
So how did we divide the responses as to who's reading what?
Well, the idea would be we'd all look at the responses.
Oh, at all of the
come up.
responses.
So independently, so each of us independently would produce our own codes, and then we'd share what those were. Because the thinking, the collective thinking was, if we each individually looked at it, came in with those codes, let's see what intersection is there.
Oh, is this, but are we looking at survey responses or at what is currently in the database?
Both.
Oh,
The
okay.
idea was to do, no, you're all good. But
No,
that-
I'm just wondering
yeah,
what we actually were
yeah.
gonna do.
So that was.
I must have misunderstood. I thought that we decided to figure out a way to split up the body of responses to assign a portion to each person.
Yeah, no, my comment, again, I didn't miss the meeting, so I'll summarize very quickly. My comment was, last fall at work, I did something very similar. I was on a group of 4 people, so it's
Yeah.
4 rather than 9, where we did a developer experience survey, with a lot of open-ended questions and some. And my reflection to this committee was that the 4 of us took our own approach and came up and essentially said, everybody read all the responses.
Yes.
Come back with the top 5 or 10
Gotcha.
themes, and come back with a count of how you thought it was, and then we compared and contrasted.
Gotcha.
And that way, everybody read everything, so if one person was coding differently, it would come out from the themes, and you could talk about that.
Yes.
So I
Okay,
thought that
I
would,
understand.
so the idea was, that would essentially make it that everybody's coding to their own self-standard, but the summation of these are the themes and these are the numbers I detected would let this group talk at an abstract level, and you'd only have to get into the weeds of a particular response
Yeah.
if that came out in terms of affecting the themes.
Okay.
Maybe, let me show you the one I made, I'll walk around and hand one out, because I also need some clarity around this. We definitely should be dividing and conquering.
Right.
I think it's not a good use of our busy lives and time for each of us to read all, hopefully 500 or 600
Thank you.
comments. So I've been eyeballing them, I've had a little logistical challenge in getting in to some of them, but the sense I have it is they're going to potentially fall somewhere along this continuum, right? And what we would have is, and those numbers could be changed, it could start at 0 and go up to +5 or something like that. And so you have the, basically, where we got to the right. We got
Change,
we got the change the seal, keep the
Did you
seal.
mean to drive a math teacher crazy by placing negative numbers on the right?
Yeah, I was a little disconcerting there.
And then what I've seen is, there's the aesthetics of it, and then we'll call it the politics of it. So where we heard the one a moment ago, I would say that was clearly keep, and I would put it up there, all right? And so what we'd ultimately would have is, we're going to have, I think, my sense of it is something that kind of looks like this eventually. And maybe these would be the initials of it, maybe we could somehow keep track of what they are, and this is, of course, really rough, but that's what I was envisioning. Now, I think we had license here to talk about it, and this is not definitely the way that we need to go, but maybe I need more help, is this what we're talking about, something like this?
Could I just ask why, I'm sorry, just 1 second. If our ultimate task is to make a recommendation on whether we're keeping or changing the town seal, why do we need a more complex classification than just keep or change?
Yeah, we don't really, I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
so with the binary coding system as the one that we currently have in the database, where we only have 2 or 3 responses that are not really that clear, all of the other ones are very, very clear in terms of where they're leaning
So
on
with
changing or keeping.
the upper or below the continuum line, we could scrap that, because it's either keep, if it's keep for the aesthetics, because you really like it, or keep because you want to honor the cotton gin,
But do
doesn't
we
matter.
care?
Doesn't, yeah, with this
So I kind
conversation
of,
we're having.
I had a different system, I think it's more aligned with either keep or change, but I also was keeping track of the reasons, because I found the reasons to be important in some cases. If someone is saying, keep it, for this reason, but then the reason turns out to have serious factual problems, I think that's significant, and vice versa, right? If they say change it, and they give reasons that are just, kind of, not reasonable or, factually incorrect, I find that to be significant too. But I think the most important question is keep or change. We had discussed at the meeting that in the survey we sent out, the question, does the imagery in the current town see reflect the town's values? That seemed to give the most direct, either yes or no answer. The other two questions don't give direct insight into whether or not we should keep or change the seal. As I've done about 120 so far, and I found a few more than just a couple that were unclear. Some people just say, I don't care. A lot. In fact, said that, which is I'm curious if they responded to the survey, if that's the case.
So I would then add a third option, the third response, which would be I don't care.
I just put NA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But within that, then I think there are, as Eric pointed out, there are those that are focused on aesthetics and design. There are those that are focused on kind of moral or political issues. I found at least a half dozen different kind of main themes.
And
that
what if
started
they
to emerge.
focus on both? Then do you just place two data points into both spaces
Yeah.
there?
So something that I did was I had a yes but column, and so I said like, they think that the symbols are, the imagery is good, but let's take off this, let's add this. So that was kind of like my yes but column, where like I had a bunch of things that they wanted to say. Like a lot of people said the town hall they liked, a lot of people said to remove just the cotton gin and we're fine. A lot of people are very upset about the pie crust edge. That's something that like
And the green.
yeah,
Oh,
the
the
green
green,
colors,
yeah.
that was a big
You like
no.
the pie
My favorite.
But yeah, I mean, I
Something
definitely
very
had more than just a yes, no column.
No.
And another thing that I noticed, I haven't spent much time really going through the responses in a structured way, but from my initial skimming through them, one thing that I noticed as a recurring pattern that doesn't really fall into the political or aesthetic category is that people saying no because it's not worth spending the money on.
I agree, yeah.
But ultimately, I do, while I think those are important reasons to keep in mind, I do come back to it. It's either, even if they say yes, but, they're still saying yes, right? Even if they're saying no, but, it's still, and our charge isn't to figure out the reasons why people wanted to change the seal, it's just figure out if they want to change the seal.
But our charge is to give a recommendation for process, right?
Right.
If it is gonna change. And I felt like some of the responses, I mean, they answered the question, the third question about suggestions about process if there were to change. So I included that in the way I was voting.
So maybe that is the question where we need that additional finesse and that additional, I guess, classification of frames or more themes to pluck out, whereas for the yes or no, it should just be the yes or no.
The other thing too, though, about the yes but that I liked, because I did that also, was that sometimes people would say, I don't want it to change, but if it's going to change, I prefer this direction for the change. So it's kind of like ranked choice voting kind of thing.
Oh, yes, that's
Right. So I voted for that too.
Okay,
So,
so yes, but possibly then, maybe. I mean, or rather, no, but maybe. Something like that.
Yeah, maybe, or like no, but I do have a preference among the options if it's
Yeah,
going to be
if
yes.
it does end up changing,
and
okay.
to speak to that point, so the yes, but I had something similar where it was interesting starting to go through these that initially I thought, oh, it's gonna be binary, it's don't change it, that's what I thought. And then the cost thing seems to be one area, and we've addressed that already, but people are saying, well, they think it's ridiculous that we have this committee, don't waste the time or the money on it. Then the other piece, to speak to your point, Dan, is I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 11 different pieces about either why to change it and then what to change it to. And redesigning having to do with other areas of the town. So it's that third question that we've asked. That one's much more gray, I would say. And it's not at all binary. So math teacher's not gonna like this. History teacher,
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is just that overall So other images for the community in its history, such as the sleigh, stride, there was some things that Mrs. Dunphy referenced actually. A reference about modernizing the seal. The pie crust, I agree with Jenna, I noted that, there were a number of people said they don't like the shape, or that they didn't understand the colors. Shoes, sleigh, straw hat. There was one comment asking whether the town, whether this committee could recommend some research into the involvement of this town in the American Revolution. And then the other one was the word crossroads and rotary. So in other words, if we were going to change, what other reasons? And I think that a subset that I would suggest that we do drill down on a little bit is a subset group. No, I don't think I should change it, but if you're gonna change it, go in this direction, go in that direction. Because I think there's gonna be some intersection between the folks who wanna change it and the folks who initially might say, don't change it, but if. So it's, on Eric's continuum, it would be, they wouldn't be
That's why I have the like strong
Yeah,
thing of
I
flexible,
wouldn't
that's
say that they
the
would
kind
be
of
like-
guess, but.
yeah, they wouldn't be like,
Flexible
you have those, you have numbers 10 down through 4, for example, with 4 being in the center. I would say those folks are probably like maybe a 5 or a 6. So there's another subset group there where they're just saying, I just don't like the seal as it is. And then the question is, should the cotton gin remain or not? But to the initial question, should it change? Those folks are saying, yes, change it, but redesign it, keep the cotton gin, which is not our task. Our
But get
task
rid
is
of the
not-
pie crust.
Okay, but get rid of the pie crust, okay? But I'm just saying, so it's so.
Let me just mention something too, that, I don't know, maybe this is just me, so I wanna be up on chest. This is a non-scientific gathering of data.
Right,
So we might be really overthinking it, because if it's 60-40 or 70-30 or 50, like, this is not how you would get information.
That's right.
Like, if we wanna know the average height of someone in Westborough, you don't ask people to come and show up, like, so keeping that in mind, do we wanna, I guess, do our best to not overthink it, because,
okay.
I mean, you know better than me,
But-
right?
But
Can I just-
it's qualitative versus, if I just make.
It's not qualitative though.
But it's veering more towards that than it is quantitative.
But no, but it's not even that, it's just even qualitative analysis needs to rely on proper sampling, right, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because if the
Right.
sampling is voluntary, then it doesn't matter if you're deeply qualitatively analyzing the data, it's just not representative of the population, right? So that's what Eric is, that's the point. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Here's my proposal, so tell me what you think about this. What if, for the major question of whether we change or not change, but rather, whether we recommend or not recommend to change, we go with the binary classification of whether the person leans toward change or does not lean toward change. For the follow-up question of if you're thinking about changing, what would you propose? Would you give me exactly one session's worth or one stretch of time between sessions, between our meetings, to perform formal tidy text analysis in R, which is what I did for my dissertation. I could come with some specific tangible results and show you what I find. I don't think it's reasonable to ask people, all of us, to read hundreds of comments and be objective while we do that. I think that if we want to be as neutral as possible, let's let the algorithm see what we can pull out of there. What kind of themes can we pull out? What kind of words can we pull out? What kind of words reappear with the most frequency? You know, what kind of patterns can we find? I don't think we should do that for the other questions, but I do think we should do that for the question that asks about suggestions for future avenues for the seal. What do you all think?
I like the clarity of the yes, but, I mean, the yes
Yes,
or no,
no,
like sort of
yes.
get those two camps.
Yeah,
But you're saying the third question is the
Mhm.
one you would do that more?
textual analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you.
I would present results, we
Yeah.
could put that on the agenda in next session, and I could show you what I pull out from there.
So would the analysis be of the question, when you think of Westborough, what symbols come to mind?
Yes.
Or would it be of,
Oh, no,
if the
not that one.
recommendation is made to change the seal, what are some
Yes, that one,
ideas?
that one, yeah.
Because they both questions
Oh, I could do them both, I
get
just,
at
yeah, yeah.
the potential process for redesign.
I see what
right?
you're saying, right. I could do that in two separate analyses.
the question, what symbols come to mind, would
What
obviously be
symbols?
things like sleighs,
Right.
rotary, et cetera, right?
Yep.
What's number 5 on the survey, or, excuse me, based on this committee's purpose, if the recommendations to change, what are some ideas, that gives us more to process, right? So hiring a graphic artist, or,
Yes.
right, contest or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I like that. My only question, this is like a bigger question, I suppose, but say we do the simple binary keep change, and we find that 45% of people say change it, or 55 say keep it, vice versa. Are we simply then,
No.
right, so that's what I was concerned about.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and I think we discussed that early on in the process, right? That although we are very interested in hearing from the public, we're not necessarily bound by what we learn. But I suppose this is as good a time as any to discuss that. Or is it necessary to discuss that until we even find that out? I'm not sure. What do you all think?
Well, I think maybe we can have the advantage of waiting to have that conversation, and let's see what happens. 45-55 is a different answer than 80-20,
That's right.
so let's table that question until we have what it is, because I haven't looked at enough of them to know. My sense is it's gonna be closer to 45-55 than 80. We won't have the luxury of tilted solidly one way or the other, but let's find out. I mean, we're gonna find out anyways, and then we can get to that question after the fact.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is really just premature conversation until we have a full sample of all responses, you know. If we can agree on the framework of how to read these responses, that should be the stopping point right now. And you are correct that even us discussing this right now, just sort of giving a sense of, divulging the sense of where the results are leaning at this moment, could in and of itself influence responses down the line, right? And that is biasing the sampling procedure as we're doing this. So that's just
Yeah, we're the exit poll workers in New York,
basically.
tipping what's happening in California. So
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yes,
So
exactly.
maybe it's time to move on from the topic. I don't have the agenda before me, but
Yeah.
I have one question. Something I noticed was that people that have submitted comments also wrote or answered the survey. Are we counting that as one person, or?
Right, we're not double counting the same
Okay.
people. Yeah, and that's a great question, because we also have had people who showed up to multiple information gathering sessions and spoke a bunch of times. And so I very deliberately did not record their position multiple times. If I coded them as being for the change or against the change, then they only counted once. To avoid that, whenever I was entering anything manually into the database, I just searched the name to make sure that I'm not double entering. I haven't ported over the responses from the surveys yet because it's not finished, right? So we will do that eventually, and we'll make sure while we're doing that we're not double counting.
I think there were also some people that took the survey more than once too.
I
noticed
heard about
couple
that,
names,
yes, I
more
heard
than
about that
one.
on the
I noticed
messaging
that.
boards.
there usually is a way that you can only do one submission.
Yeah.
on
I
these
think
school
you
boards.
have to toggle that option in
Yeah.
Google Forms. So if that wasn't toggled, that's,
You
yeah.
You can do it now. I don't know who's in charge of that form.
That's me,
Yeah,
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can
Okay,
do
thank
that.
you,
But I-
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
it's probably not enough to really sway it and tip it wildly one way or the other, but just be a little
Oh,
meter.
you never know.
Yeah.
This is a small town where every vote
Can I
matters.
take one observation?
Yeah.
Just from hearing the 4 or 5 of you who described the mental process you were going through when you read them all, I don't think it's too much to ask for all of you to read all the responses.
Really?
I don't think you have to go through and do
It's-
any fine-grained detail. I find that as I've been reading through them, it just sort of gives me a sense of where people are coming from. So I know that I think it was Eric made that comment about, you know, the divide and conquer and do that. I think in this case, don't feel you have to. This is me as a voter in town, not as your appointing authority. I think that for something like this, where we know it's a very emotionally charged topic, I think you get a sense of where people are coming from by reading them all, and I think it's not too much to ask to say, you know, take a night, read them.
So
Read
it's
them
not
all,
that-
even if, I don't mean that you have to go through 400 things and make a fine-grained decision.
Right.
On it, but I do think that you can get a sense of and this goes back to my original comment of my work experience. my work experience wasn't that we went through our surveys and did a deep dive numeric coding. We read them all and came back and said, oh, TypeScript versus JavaScript is something people care about. You know, it was really 4 or 5 themes that came up. And so I'm not going to tell you what your themes are, but I'm not talking about doing it from a math perspective. It's more, what are the lightning rod things? Obviously, cotton gin.
So just to be clear, it's not, I don't think that what we're saying is that it would be too much work necessarily. I think what we're saying is that could contaminate the process of thinking and coding properly if we individually are tasked.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Right.
I just
So-
think going into general deliberations, everyone should have read everyone's comment, is my thing.
I think so.
I didn't want
Absolutely.
people to think that, oh, you'll read 20, I'll read 20, I'll read 20, and then everybody, because I think you don't get the sense of how people are feeling about it unless you've read them.
So I think that's absolutely true, and just by the virtue of serving in this committee, I think we're, exposing ourselves to a great variety of the different viewpoints. As a quantitative researcher who's worked with surveys my entire professional life, it just would be my recommendation to not formally code more than a chunk of responses, just for transparency, for clarity, for interquarter reliability, for just to preserve as much as possible the elements of the scientific process that we all trust in a public process. But by all means, definitely read everybody's comments and get a sense of what everybody is thinking.
And just echo what you said. To me, your process is up to you, but I just think to do the voters the best service, to get a real sense of it, everybody should read every comment, even if you don't read it with a fine tooth.
So to date, I've read everything.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm picking up is that there's repetition of themes.
Yeah.
I have not, even with what we received today, I have not read anything now in the last 20 days since we last met. I've not read anything that we haven't already heard at a information gathering session, received in a comment through an email,
Right.
or then presented in these surveys. There's very much similar themes that are emerging, and yes, I do think it's fair to announce, okay, we're going to do this until the 31st of March, and that's fine. I'd be very surprised if we even from this gathering of information that we have, and for a survey of 339 people who wrote, and yes, some of it, there were a few, like I too thought there were definitely a few people done it twice. I haven't seen anything jump out where there was that aha moment, and I said, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, we ought to, this is something we ought to consider. The themes that we heard at the information gathering session, at all 3 of them, they're similar.
Yep.
And there is passion, as John mentioned, but there's passion on both sides from what I've seen too.
Is it 339, does that include also the verbal comments in the pre-info sessions?
No,
And the individual emails?
that's the raw number on the survey sheet.
So do we know the numbers on those others roughly?
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
We have those in the previous.
We have
ones, I
those in the
think.
other ones.
Because it was one just came in a few hours ago. and then-
Yes.
Right, so I still need to add about a handful
Mhm.
of those. Let me tell you right now how many we have.
What's it? It's probably 350 now. I mean,
So in the sentiment database, we currently have, I have it pulled
so
up.
I can, let's see,
No, it's not that many, it's not even 100. It is really just 37.
yeah.
So be 339 plus the 37,
Mhm.
which is the emails that came in and people who stood up and spoke.
And at the gathering sessions.
So at our last meeting, we said that there were, at that point, 337 comments in the survey, plus 2 more since then, plus 24 letters to the committee received through email, plus 41 individual pieces of feedback presented at in-person meetings. So 41, 25, terrible math, but 65, plus the 339, so
Okay.
380 something.
we're just a little, probably maybe slightly under 400.
Yeah,
Okay,
not bad.
but one thing I have not done is gone back through the surveys to see if there's any repetition. I did not do that. However, as I'm looking here, on the last page of one of them from February 10th, there are definitely 2. I'm looking right now, there are 2.
So would we want to set this as one of the tasks to do? One of our homework assignments for the next meeting would be to go through the survey responses and enter without repetition the answers into the same database in which we have been collecting email responses and information gathering responses. And everybody has access to that database, is that right?
That's what I need a little coaching on. I might or might not, and it might be tied with my email never really working in the loop.
Okay,
I reached out to you around this, so, but we could talk offline. I don't
Yeah.
need to take committee time.
we can
Yeah.
certainly do that.
I guess I know that if we go from 400 to 800, just like if you're measuring people's height, it's not gonna really change the average. But part of our task here was to throw the net as wide as it could,
Mhm.
to try to get as much opportunity for anyone who might want to comment. I mean, there is only so much a range of, perspectives that one could take.
Mhm.
So I get that if we double this number, there's still gonna be 45, 55% maybe. But I still think we should try, and till the end of March seems very reasonable,
Mhm.
on top of all the other things we've done. Even though it might not change really the,
And just a point
Yeah.
of, just a reminder, that survey has been on the town website now for 5 weeks.
Yeah, so
So-
it's been there a decent time.
Yeah, I mean,
It's been.
I mean,
a while.
there's from my own experience in town government, to get this kind of response, pushing somewhere almost to 400 responses in a town this size, that's a pretty healthy response, actually.
Mhm.
And if there was more interest in it, I think we would have heard from other residents at this point. So
Okay.
that's a little bit of a, yeah, I don't know if, I'm not, I go back to what I said a few minutes ago. I'm not sure we're gonna get anything else that's
That's right.
categorically, substantively different from what we've gathered already. But
So-
I could be wrong.
So just to sum up what we've talked about today, as we go on to the next agenda item of settling the agenda for the next meeting, so the next thing that's coming up for us is going to be the report on the 19th, for which I will finish writing up the final paragraphs, and I will share this with you all. Nick is going to make the slide, right?
Right, and I'll share that with you.
Then share that also with all of us, and then we will appear on the 19th to present. And then in the next meeting, the first agenda item that I have is that text analysis that hopefully will show us something, some patterns that I will present to you all. And what would be other agenda items for that next meeting?
I had one, Wendy had asked me to just bring this up. Goodness.
So the next meeting would be the textual analysis of questions 2 and 3, but not discussion of question 1.
So I think it depends on when we hold the next meeting, right? If we hold the next meeting
After March 31st.
after March 31st and give ourselves some time to also analyze the comments, then we may as well just discuss both in one go.
I don't see a need, I would suggest I don't see a need for a meeting between the town hall presentation and March 31st.
Right, that makes sense.
An agenda item, Wendy asked just to discuss whether we would want to do this. An agenda item, quote, an agenda item I had was a discussion about whether committee members should present written or oral points of view publicly or on the web page about what our opinion is about this seal.
Individually, us, all of us?
So that's something we can talk about
Yeah, I think
now.
you may want to talk about that now. I think if it's based on a similar question she asked me, I think she wanted to know whether the committee thought it was appropriate for committee members to fill out the survey themselves, or to send a letter to be included in the data.
We had discussed this at our last meeting. My understanding was that the consensus was we have our own abilities to shape
Right.
the kind of discussion, the decision, just by our involvement in the committee, so we shouldn't submit statements to the survey or letters individually, but.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to do that, because I'm suspecting that ultimately when we vote, if you want to say, here's why I'm voting the way I'm voting, then you could have the opportunity to say so. But I'm just, don't shoot the messenger here, I'm just passing along the proposal.
I tend to agree. I think we have plentiful opportunity to express where we're leaning, and like you said, you also state your position as to why you're voting the way you're voting, so it seems redundant.
But as John said, I think the gist of this was, should we also submit something through the survey, but
And that was also decided at
It
the last
was,
meeting,
yeah.
right? So that, I think that's redundant. So, other than the text analysis, so should we also then discuss the results of reading our survey answers to the first?
I say it makes sense to bump out when we meet again in later March
Right,
or April.
well, that would have to be in April.
April, I mean, later in April, building enough time, even if it's like April 10th or something, building enough time for us to start to
Okay.
do this, yes, no.
So then the two major items on the agenda, unless we have anything else to add, would be to then to hear that presentation for text analysis and to start discussing some of the things that we are getting from reading the survey responses for the first several questions. And it doesn't have to be the final time we read them or the final time we discuss them, but it will at least give us an opportunity to start saying, this is what I've read in these surveys now that the survey has been closed. Okay.
I'd also add, in case Ian can get in touch with Ross Eldridge, that's
Yes.
on the agenda.
So the third agenda item would be to, if you get in touch with Ross Eldridge to discuss that.
So would you want to add in, similar to what we've done at a few previous meetings, some kind of a statement of reports from interviews and related
It could
correspondence?
be any other correspondence. in the
Correspondence,
community
just
or
in case
whatever.
we have something else.
Yeah, because if you have somebody else who sends something other than the survey, then you could at least get that into the record.
And so looking at the calendar, if the survey closes on March the 31st, which is a Thursday, and we want to give ourselves another maybe couple of weeks to read the survey responses in April, 2 weeks after the 31st is April 14th. What do we think? Are you thinking April 14th or after?
What day of the week is the 14th?
That's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
That would be fine with me. I'd say we'd probably want to do it that week, because the next week I think is April break.
Yeah.
It's gonna start getting chaotic, just trying to get people to meet.
Okay,
Yeah.
how is April 14th for everyone?
14th doesn't work for me.
I
It doesn't
can't-
work.
I can't make the 14th.
13th,
Okay, can we do the
I
13th,
I can do the 13th.
12th?
I can't do the 12th.
the 15th, Friday?
I can't say, it's, yeah,
Okay.
that's a Friday and it's Passover and Good Friday.
So how many of us cannot make the 14th, the original? Just the one?
No,
Would you mind just,
That's,
okay,
that's fine.
let's just do that.
No,
So,
No, I can't.
oh,
make
you
it.
can't make that either? Okay.
Is the 11th too soon?
The 11th does work for me.
That's a Monday night.
Yeah.
The only rub with that is just trying to find a room, because that's the only, because, am I right, John?
It's probably, probably easier since town meeting will be done, because a lot of times the finance committee's been meeting every Monday, but they'll be done meeting every Monday by then,
So do you want to shoot for Monday the 11th?
Yeah.
Is that not good for you?
It's a little tough on Mondays.
Okay, all right. Do you want to go the following week?
Is the following week the school break, or is?
It is.
Okay.
Uh,
So should we go for, I mean, we have all this time between the end of March and October. We may as well just meet later in April.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not gonna make it or break it that additional week or two. Do we wanna say April 28th?
I can't do Thursdays.
Okay, 27th?
27th I can do it.
27th works? Okay, so April 27th, and we're still 7:30, right? April 27th.
what was the 7:30? Was it when you were coaching?
It was.
No, it was because, yeah, just.
Me being able to get here on
Ian
time.
to try to get here.
Is that still holds it later April? Starting at 7 would be a little more easier for me,
Yeah.
but.
I'd be
saying
late, so that's
7:30.
fine, if it works for everyone else.
Yeah,
You can always do 7:15.
I am coaching again, starting,
Okay, let's stay
Yeah,
with
Yeah,
I'm gonna
March,
start
so-
coaching as well,
so
so.
it's
Stick with
7:30 would
7:30
actually
then.
work better for me. All right, so accept the minutes from March 9th, any correspondence, the text analysis of the comments,
Mhm.
and then results of the survey. We'll begin that. Is there anything else that you want me to add?
Just,
And I'll try,
crafting the agenda
and I'll
for the
try to get
following.
this space again,
Yep.
if that's okay.
That sounds good.
So could someone help me understand the logistics of the comments that come in and it closes March 31st?
Right.
How would I have access? Are we gonna have access to them? And like what I'm envisioning is like choose one and read 100 of them and get a sense of like, of these 100 I read, here's my numbers.
So
And
I
stopping
think
there.
at this, that's a great question. I think at this point, we should not be reading for formal coding. I think at this point, we should be reading for impressions, like John has said that we, you know, to familiarize ourselves with its overwhelming sentiment. So we should be.
Then on the
should be reading
27th, we
all
would
of
come
them.
up with that formal coding stricture.
So my sense is that once we hear the text once I do the text analysis, we will have a better sense of what should be the formal coding structure.
Okay,
Yeah, and maybe then we can settle that. Should we add that to the agendas, deciding on a formal coding structure?
I got
We're talking about the question about does the imagery in the town seal reflect the values, and I mean, because that's the question we said is the most direct response, right? I mean, my understanding was that, we discussed last meeting, it's either we feel we can get whether people want to keep it or change it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'm leaving
don't know
that
where
as
you feel
well.
like overcomplicate that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, I guess I'm just, and again, if I'm being thick-headed, and I'm starting to sunset here, I'll continue the informal reading between
Right.
now and the end of April.
Yes,
And so I can, if I can't get to some, I can read others I can see.
I think that's
And
fair.
then on April 27th, we'll decide, here's the grid we're gonna use.
Right.
Okay, I get it.
Okay,
Is
do I-
there a way on, not on April, or, like on April 1st or after, that we're able to get like another one of like copies of everything, so we can
I think that's,
have,
yeah, I think that's doable.
that someone like makes like a Excel chart with it, so
Right,
like because you have access to all the responses,
Mm.
you can save it as like an Excel, and
Right,
then
so,
just send it
well,
out.
that's a Google sheet, actually, a Google sheet, so that, right now, the link you have for the surveys,
Mhm.
any additional information gets dumped into that sheet.
Okay.
So,
So we'll
you,
just-
like, you open that
Yeah,
when you
we
went
can have
home.
access.
I'd be happy to, on April 1st, I'd be happy to, download an Excel version of the spreadsheet and just send it out to everybody.
Ian, could you
Please.
merge the two though? Could you, and then
With
also, so merge it with with what we have now, but also make sure that there are no doubles? Is that it a big task, or could you do that?
I'm pretty slow with computers, but, especially spreadsheets,
I mean,
but
it's-
it's mostly making sure there's no doubles.
Right,
Is there a quick and easy way to?
it would be not quick and easy, but you would have to just term search, so you would just do the Control F
Right.
and search for the name.
Yeah.
I don't think it's even worth automating that, because it's more trouble.
Yeah.
Would we just copy their second response and put it with their first response and have it just be a chunk?
Oh,
or
do
would
they
we
not
get-
leave their name and address in the survey? Isn't there?
No, they do.
No.
Right,
they
so
do,
that
but,
would be the identifier, right? So if the name repeats more than once, then you just take out that additional response.
Okay, we just.
Yeah.
I would think you would just glom them together as
Yeah,
one
that's
response,
what,
yeah.
yeah, that's what I was kind of.
Because
Oh,
what I think,
Are they different? Oh, or are they like the
I
Well,
same?
they probably don't word everything exactly the same.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You're not
Some
copying
are
and
the
doing it at the same
same.
time, you probably say, oh, go do that again, and
I
then
see what
you
you're
probably have the
saying.
same tenor of the response, but it's probably not exactly the
But
same.
it's probably not exactly
Would be
the
my
same.
guess.
Okay, fair enough. Would you be able to do that? If you run into trouble, email me, and I'm sure I can either help it or just do it, but yeah, let me know.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Anyone seconding that? Okay, the motion is, the meeting is adjourned, the motion is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. This was really efficient.